limits, man. Okay, calm down.
We want to ask you, Rania, shifting gears a little bit, to talk about what's happening in the region. So we were just talking about Israel-Palestine, but what is happening in the rest of the Middle East? And what's the axis of resistance? Let's start there.
So, the axis of resistance, it's a collection of, you can't really call them armies because some of them are, as they call them, non-state actors, but it's a collection of fighting forces across the region who are committed to protecting the sovereignty and territorial integrity of their countries against imperialism. And the sort of leadership of the axis of resistance, because of its support for it, is Iran, at least, you know, culturally and monetarily. And when it comes to like weapons.
Did they sponsor your trip here?
Well, I mean, I'm neither yes nor no because I don't want to offend anyone on any side.
Iranian stooge.
But, I mean, some people would say, I've been called Irania before.
Oh, that's clever.
Wow.
It's a funny one, right? Yeah.
I may not agree with them, but they're smart and funny.
Well, that's like one of the
whoever said
only
that.
smart and funny ones. Sometimes it's really stupid.
really-
Like
that's
my
really
favorite,
stupid.
my
That's really
favorite is why don't you go live in Iran? And I'm like, okay.
You don't speak Farsi.
Go back to your
Take a
I'll
Farsi
visit.
craft
I'm down
course.
with visiting Iran, but like, okay. Anyway, but no, so Iran is sort of like the you know, leader of it. It's a country, right? It has an army. It's like has a functioning government. And then you have a bunch of forces. Obviously, I think the most militarily significant one in terms of its power to fight is Hezbollah in Lebanon. Of course, there's Palestinian factions across Gaza and the West Bank. Hamas is the one we hear the most about, but there are actually a lot of other groups, and they're all working together right now, including a leftist one too, but we don't hear about those ones either. But anyways, so you have Palestinians, you have Hezbollah, which is Lebanese, you have in Iraq, you have various forces inside what's called the Hashd al-Shabi, or the Popular Mobilization Forces, which were formed after ISIS took large swaths of Iraq back in 2014, and they came together to fight ISIS, and the US identifies a few of them as terrorist organizations, but really all this means is that they're organizations that don't like America and fight America sometimes. And then you've got, more recently, becoming even stronger, the Yemenis.
Who are fulfilling their obligation, right? Like, as well as every country
I want to
should.
say a few things about the other ones, but I do want to just first say some things about the Yemenis, because I think the Yemenis have taken the world by storm. It's fascinating. I think the Yemenis are doing material damage. They're causing economic consequences for genocide. This is humanitarian intervention. What they're doing, they're blockading ships. And not any ships. They're not blockading all ships. Initially, they were only obstructing the movement of ships that had a destination for this fake country called Israel. It calls itself Israel. And so this was, and they said repeatedly, this group called Ansar Allah, which runs Yemen right now, that fought a several years long war, some might even call it a genocide, that the US and the UK and the Saudis were inflicting on them, and they won. They were saying repeatedly, their leadership over and over, you can go hear their interviews, they said, as long as this genocide of Gaza continues, as long as humanitarian aid is not allowed in, we will obstruct any ship coming from anywhere that is destined for Israel. And they did that. And they did that quite non-violently, and I would say in the sense of they didn't kill anyone. But the US got really mad and bombed them for it as a result recently. And it's just crazy how much the US is willing to escalate. And I just want to note, you know, you shouldn't mess with Yemenis. You saw that video we showed you in the beginning, but there's one video I have watched probably 100 times. I think it was like a month into the genocide.
It's really satisfying.
One of my personal trainers sent it to me.
One of her many.
One of my many.
Trainers.
No, I have two. I have two who I love dearly. But one of them actually sent it to me because he's like super political, and he was like, "This video is so cool." And it's like this just Yemeni guy on the street video, and it's a pretty, I think, common attitude of Yemenis. And I want that clip to be shown if possible.
America or Israel, we would say to them, whatever they do, whatever they among with them, we don't fucking give a shit to them. And we don't care, and they will never scare us. They will never stop us. We are coming from Yemen, from Sana'a to Palestine very soon, inshallah. Because we are with our leader, Sayyid Abdul Malik Badruddin al-Houthi, and we know that we are in the right side. So no one can stop us. We know our way. We know that we are in the right side. So we're going to come to the White House and we will change it from the White House to the black house and dirty house. Just wait for us. And that's it.
Preach. Preach.
We should nominate him for president.
Yeah. You can
that
come,
guy.
you can be your White House, sir. But I mean, that is a rare, I mean, I don't think people understand, like, Yemenis have already sacrificed so much, and they're willing to sacrifice more. Like, when people have nothing to lose, and you have everything to lose, like, it's on their side, not yours. And I think that that's a microcosm of the struggle across the region right now. Palestinians are fighting, like, yes, there's a genocide happening, and it's horrific, and we should all be disgusted and grieving over it. But we cannot forget the fact that Palestinians are resisting. They are resisting courageously every single day in many different ways. They are resisting. They're so brave. They're so creative. I mean, it's across Palestine and even outside of Palestine. People are resisting in so many different ways, and we can't erase that, and we need to let that inspire us. Inspire us right now, because people are resisting a genocide. If there were fighters and writers and protesters inside any death camp during the Holocaust, inside the Warsaw Ghetto, we would be remembering them today as the bravest, most courageous, and there were, as the bravest, most courageous people in the world. And there is this double standard, right? Where Israelis and their supporters get to go on the internet and they get to celebrate doing genocide. They get to take photos and videos and put them online and laugh and joke and plan more, and nothing happens. There's no consequence. But then an Arab writes that they're prideful of their resistance online, it gets taken down, they lose their job. Like, they even try to take away the right of people to celebrate their resistance. And our resistance here is all the protests that are happening, and they're so important. But
Which were painted as pro-Hamas celebrations at the beginning.
Pro-terrorist
yeah,
protests.
pro-terrorist protests. But I just want to say a couple more things, and I'll stop rambling. But I have spent the majority of the time post-October 7th in Lebanon. And I think I'm happy I got to be there, and I'm going back in a week, and I'm happy to go back. And it has definitely been a little scary to be there, you know, in the sense of every single day you live next to this psychotic neighbor who's like threatening to annihilate you. So literally, like, every day the Israelis are like, we're gonna take Lebanon back to the Stone Age. We're gonna turn Beirut into Gaza. The Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant says he wants to copy-paste Gaza onto Beirut, which just reminds me of, like, I know English isn't his first language, which is fine. It's kind of funny. I'm gonna copy-paste. I will copy-paste this, but no, it's like I'm gonna copy-paste genocide. It's disgusting. So that's a little bit frightening to hear. You see, it's psychological terror. They're trying to psychologically terrorize their neighbors who aren't in Gaza. But it's not working. People are not scared of them anymore. This is not the Middle East of 2003. This is the Middle East of 2024. There are forces of resistance across the region who refuse to be bullied, who refuse to be terrorized, and who refuse to submit to this disgusting, thuggish bullying that we're seeing. And I think it's incredible. I think it's an incredible moment, and I think it's going to be, you know, we're going to look back at this years from now and see it as a huge turning point in history, because what's happening in Gaza, I mentioned, my notes said Gaza's class struggle. What's happening in Gaza is you have people in the global south fighting colonizers. They're fighting imperialism. America backs Israel. Israel is an arm of American imperialism, and people are fighting it. They are fighting imperialism. And it's anti-imperialism that we're witnessing right now on a huge scale. The Israelis say, oh, we're going to defeat Hamas. We're going to defeat Hezbollah every single day. Hamas fires at Israel. You have achieved nothing militarily. And just to show you the fearlessness of the Lebanese, because they know that today they have an army, they have Hezbollah, they're not scared, at least not, like, especially not in the south. It sucks and it is scary, but they're not scared because, in the past, whenever Israel wanted to bomb Lebanon, the first thing they would do is bomb the airport. It's been almost 4 months, and you know what they haven't done? They haven't bombed the airport. That's huge. That's huge. Every time anybody fired at Israel, they would bomb the airport. And now the airport's been functioning for 4 months, and there's only one reason for that. Like it or hate it, it's because Hezbollah has strategic deterrent capacity against Israel. Israel knows if we bomb the airport in Beirut, which they still might, but they know if we bomb the airport in Beirut, they're gonna bomb Ben Gurion. And they're not gonna bomb Ben Gurion with homemade rockets that aren't precision guided. They're gonna use precision guided missiles that will do real damage and will shut down our airport. So they think 100 times before they bomb what they wanna bomb in Lebanon. And that's the difference between today and before. And I wanna show this one journalist in particular. He is a correspondent for an outlet called Al-Mayadeen, which the Israelis just banned in Israel because they call it an arm of terrorism.
Where is it based?
It's based in Lebanon. It's a Lebanese outlet. It's called Al-Mayadeen. Doesn't pretend to be objective. It has a very pro-resistance view. And there's this correspondent called Ali Mortada, and he's based on the border in the south of Lebanon where all of the bombings are happening. And every single day, this guy makes a video. And he makes a video for his enemies. He says, "Hello, my enemy. May you have a very bad day." And then he proceeds to say whatever he wants to say that day. And so he taunts them. It's hilarious. So I want to play a clip of Ali Mortada taunting his Israeli neighbors.
Hello, my enemies. May you have a very, 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 very bad day. Guys, if you have anything to do, you can do it now. We are on a break. We are watching the big guy and listening what he's
Hezbollah's
gonna do
Nasrallah.
to you. So after he finished, run away. But now you can do it. If you have anything, you can do. Take care, ya bibi.
I encourage you to follow him on Instagram and Twitter because it just lifts my spirits to see that. But also, I just want to mention one more thing. The Israelis and what they've done in Gaza has destroyed any chance at normalization anytime soon, even with the collaborationist Arab governments that the U.S. owns. And the street is with Palestine everywhere. Even you see flags with this man called Abu Ubaidah on it. He's the spokesperson for the Qassam brigades, which I'm sure a lot of people in this room are aware of and familiar with. He gives these really fiery speeches. He's like the Nasrallah of Qassam. And he's well known. His picture is all over the place, and people are starting to revere this guy.
In fact, I think he was invited to give a keynote at the Emmys, right? Just like Zelensky last year. I think I saw the Qassam brigade.
Like Zelensky last year.
Yeah, it was cool to see, actually.
But he was
really
too busy.
Cool. Yeah.
But anyways, I just wanted to end with that. So I'll end my end of rant.
Well,
End of rant.
no, Rania, it's so incredible that you broke that down. It's so important because I mean, at least for me, watching this situation unfold, it seems so counterintuitive to maintaining global hegemony when you're losing the plot, right? It's so counterintuitive to U.S. empire and capitalism with the attack, all of the bombing campaigns, all of the attacks. And it's what is really behind this? How could the U.S. be slipping so much to allow this new kind of world order to emerge? But I think when you're a hammer, everything's a nail. There is no strategy behind it other than all we have is military might. I mean, the United States is basically just an empty suit run by missile companies. And so all they see is let's bomb the problem. And I think that's truly it. If you look back and you're like, oh, how come we didn't learn the lessons of the Iraq War or Vietnam? There are no lessons to be gleaned by an empire that is belligerent and out of control, and they just throw out the advisors who counter what they say. So that's what we're seeing today. It's my question is for the media. How could you call yourself a journalist and not be speaking out with every fiber of your being for 105 of your colleagues to be assassinated, many along their entire families? But for the actual political establishment, it kind of makes sense now that I'm looking at it. It's they're just going to dig their own grave like they always have because there is no other solution.
Yeah, I want to add one thing to what you're saying specifically, because it is why are you going this far? It is hurt. They are hurting themselves in the long run, but I don't think they have a choice because I think October 7th represented something really scary to the Americans and Europeans. And it's okay, you had Gaza's this concentration camp that's now been turned into a death camp, right? It's been a concentration camp for 15 years practically. And the prisoners, but it's not even right to call them prisoners. The concentration camp dwellers broke out of their cage and they inflicted a military blow onto what was supposed to be the representative of Western imperialism in the Middle East. And they humiliated them. And that cannot be allowed. That's really scary. That's like, what if other people across the global South get ideas? We can't have people breaking out of their cages. We have to deter that. How do you deter that? You crush them. You crush them into the ground. And so I think this is punishment and also supposed to be like a lesson for all those other countries out there. All these African countries, all these Latin American countries, all these Asian countries. Don't you dare think about it, or this is what's gonna happen to you.
Yeah, don't you dare stand on your own 2 feet.